March 11th, 2013. A calm, unremarkable morning at a refinery nestled in the Sultanate of Oman. The refinery was in the midst of a planned shutdown, routine shutdown maintenance scheduled months in advance. On the surface, everything appeared under control. But as with any shutdown, working under time pressure was the norm. Teams made countless decisions to stay on schedule, often relying on experience and, at times, on luck. This day seemed no different. What no one knew was that a series of under-pressure and unsafe decisions and deviations were quietly setting the stage for a catastrophic event. 2 days earlier, under the supervision of the main contractor, the STS team began dismantling a towering 90-meter wet gas scrubber, a critical part of the refinery's emission control system. The initial phase went smoothly. The top section was safely dismantled and removed using spanners, rigging, and an 800-ton crane. The team was off to a timely and safe start. By the book, by the numbers. But by the next day, momentum came to a halt. The second segment of the scrubber, tightly bolted to the reheat mixer, wouldn't give way. Workers faced 120 heavily corroded bolts. After an entire shift, only 16 had been removed. That evening, during the daily review attended by the client, the main contractor and STS, the tone changed. What was supposed to be routine had turned into a delay, and in shutdowns, time is money. A 3 to 4 day hold-up? Unacceptable. To make up for lost time, the team suggested an alternative method. Cut through the shell above the reheat mixer flange using oxyacetylene gas torches. After all, the shell was due for replacement. However, cutting the shell introduced additional risks, as it was positioned above nearly 2 tons of polypropylene packing material, a highly flammable substance, particularly when contaminated with sulfur residues. To mitigate the risk, a basic safety plan was thrown together. Station fire watches and spray water continuously from the top onto the polypropylene packing. March 11th dawned with urgency. At 7 a.m., a toolbox talk reviewed the tasks ahead. At 8 a.m., a handwritten hot work permit, number 16820, was issued and approved by the client. But the permit mentioned only lifting and welding. The proposed gas cutting of the shell was nowhere mentioned on the approved hot work permit document. A small administrative oversight that would become a legal and operational nightmare. By late morning, torches were active. From 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., the shell was being sliced open. Showers of sparks lit the scaffolded platform. Fire watchers were in position, vigilant. Hoses were connected and continuously spraying water. But as the crane crew prepared for lifting, the fire watchers stepped away to avoid standing below load, per life-saving rules. As fire hose is connected to manual door. At 1:30 p.m., the crane engaged, but the section didn't budge. Closer inspection revealed the problem: a thin, highly heat-resistant Inconel liner plate welded inside the shell. This liner wasn't considered earlier. It had gone unnoticed in every review meeting. The earlier decision to proceed with cutting had been made without full knowledge of what lay within. Under pressure to proceed, a snap decision was made and agreed by the client, main contractor and STS team at 2:40 p.m. Torch cut through the Inconel liner. But there was no updated risk assessment, no new permit, no official records. No one thought to call the fire watchers back to their post. The only defense against ignition, water spraying hose, unattended and loosely tied. Then, the moment of ignition. The packing material inside scrubber, mixed with residual sulfur, heated under the torch. There, sulfur residues accumulated around the shell also started to heat up. As the metal glowed, burning sulfur began to drip onto the polypropylene below. Over a period of time, the polypropylene packing caught fire. As thick smoke started to emit, fire watchers rushed back and redirected the hoses, but by then, fire was already billowing from the scrubber. Immediately after noticing smoke emitting from the unit, the refinery's fire crews were called and they sprang into action, connecting to ground-level hydrants and dousing the scrubber from below. But water pressure dropped. With so many simultaneous connections, flow to the upper platform hoses was choked off right when it was needed the most. Inside, the scrubber's steel began to warp and groan under the heat. The fire watchers rushed away because the fire intensified and the water level dropped. At 3:47 p.m., the wet gas scrubber collapsed in a thunderous roar. It dragged down the slings, rigging, and nearby piping systems. GRP pipelines snapped. Seawater suction lines shattered. A massive structural failure visible across the site. Only the crane operator's instinct to swing the load away from crowded zones prevented wider devastation. Amazingly, no lives were lost, but the financial impact was staggering. Initially assessed at $8 million, with later estimates reaching up to $150 million. The wet gas scrubber unit remained offline for 5 long months. Production suffered, reputations took a hit, and trust in companies' HSC management systems was shaken. The investigation revealed a perfect storm of avoidable errors. Risk management process was not effective. The hot work permit failed to capture the clear description of activities. The risk of flammable material like polypropylene and sulfur residue was not adequately addressed. The Inconel liner was not considered while making gas cutting decision. 5 watchers were not recalled when cutting of Inconel liner commenced. Water pressure issues compromised firefighting efforts. No plan existed for fire suppression at 90-meter heights, and crucially, the management of change process was not considered. The most important factor is that the main contractor and STS team were not fully aware of the process-related inherent risks involved in this activity. In the wake of the incident, refinery and its contractors overhauled their approach to safety and control. Permit-to-work systems were reinforced, no ambiguity allowed. Management of change became mandatory for all deviations. As part of the learning from this incident, STS management implemented HSC assurance keys with stricter audits and accountability. By April 7th, the area was cleared, but the memory remained, a constant reminder of what must never happen again. This wet gas scrubber fire left more than just a damaged structure. It left behind critical, enduring lessons. Never make changes to work process or procedures without formal MOC. Always ensure every task has a specific, detailed permit. Conduct risk assessments with full, up-to-date information. Approved method statements must be available for all critical activities, explaining scope, step-by-step procedure, required resources, risk management measures, emergency response plans, etc. Train for emergencies, not in theory, but in real-world conditions. And above all, follow safety protocols every time, without exception. As STS operates across diverse client facilities, it's crucial for the team to acknowledge that clients possess in-depth knowledge of their assets and associated risks. Therefore, the STS team must engage proactively with key client representatives and exercise due diligence through comprehensive discussions before deciding on work methodologies. All decisions made during task execution must be clearly documented and communicated to all relevant parties. The project management team shall ensure that all risks associated with contractual obligations, including insurance liabilities, are thoroughly evaluated. Appropriate controls must be established to prevent any breaches that could lead to catastrophic incidents, reputational damage, litigation, or significant financial losses. Key stakeholders should be made aware of these obligations and the associated controls, and mechanisms shall be implemented to ensure ongoing compliance. To every technician, supervisor, engineer, and senior leader, this is your call to action. Safety is not a formality. It's not negotiable. It's a mindset, a responsibility, a duty. Because one missed step, one silent omission, can lead to catastrophe. Stay alert. Stay accountable. Stay alive.